So how the time of supply will decide in the case of any change in the rate of tax. So there is going to be a rate in change of tax and how it is going to affect it. That is a question. So section 14 of CGST Act provides to determine the time of supply where there is a change in rate of tax in respect of goods and service or both. So section 14 always needs section 12, section 13. So section 12 goods, section 10, 13 for services. So next we come for section 14. If there is a rate of change of tax, how will it going to affect? They have said clearly. So the section will start with the word nothing standing, that is overriding section 12 and 13 of the act. So section 14 overrides section 12 and 13. Nothing withstanding. So nothing can withstand section 14. So according to the time of supply to decide as when the goods and service both has been supplied before the change in rate of tax, where the invoice of the same has been issued and the payment is also received after the change in rate of tax. Then old tax regime. So, sir, before the change, tax is going to be changed. Before that, they have supply the services, they have raised the invoice, they have received the payment after tax, no issue. Time of supply shall be the date of receipt of payment or the date of issue of invoice, whichever is earlier. So in this case, which is the date, sir, I am receiving the payment before or I have done the service before. So I have done the service and before the change in the rate of tax, or I have received the payment before the change in the rate of tax. Then the previous rate of tax will be applicable if the earlier case. Second, where the invoice has been issued prior to the change in rate of tax, but the payment is received after the change in rate of tax. So I going to I coming to know that after this cutoff date, there is going to be a rate of change. So for a safer purpose, I raise the invoice, but the payment is received after the rate of change of tax. So now what is the rate? Old or new? Old rate. Why? The time of supply shall be date of issue of invoice. So in this case, what is the time of supply is change in the date of invoice. Date of invoice is not change in date. Date of invoice is the date. But the payment has been received before the change in rate of tax, but the invoice of the same is issued after the change of tax. Client is aware, sir, there is going to be a change in rate, but the service provider doesn't care because always the burden of GST is on the payer, na, receiver of service. So he is totally aware that is going to be change. So what he made clear cleverly, sir, I will pay the advance before the change in rate of tax. So, but that supplier doesn't care. He is raising the invoice after the date of change of after the change of tax. So in this case, what is the rate of tax? Old, not a new, because the payment is received. And the goods and service both has been supplied after the change of tax rate. Sir, supply has been after the tax, after the change in tax. What in what? The payment is received after the change in rate of tax, but the invoice has been issued prior to the change in rate of tax. The time of supply is the date of receipt of payment. So previously, what we see is the service or goods has been done before the change in rate of tax. But now the problem is the service is done after the change in rate of tax. I mean, the act has been done, but previously I have received the payment before the tax, but the invoice is raised. But the invoice has been issued prior to the change in rate. What the invoice has been raised. Payment is after the change in rate of tax, and service also after the day after the change of tax. Then what is the rate? New rate. The time of supply will be dated where the when the supply is happening before the tax, after the tax are taken. So this is after the tax. So new tax. But the invoice has been issued and the payment is received before the change in rate of tax. Then what? The time of supply shall be date of receipt of payment or date of issue of invoice, whichever is earlier. So here the both the parties, the supplier and the receiver or recipient is so clever. So we know I'm going to supply after that. I know I can provide the supply before this date. My transport is stocked, or I can provide the service because of my time is constrained. So what we will do? I will raise the invoice and you will make the payment. So there is no issue. Even though I provide the service and goods, after the rate of change in rate of tax, I had received the payment, so I will pay the old tax. But the invoice has been issued after the change in rate of tax, but the payment is received before the change in rate of tax. Time of supply shall be date of issue of invoice. Sir, the goods is not sent to you. The service is not done to you. It has been done after the change in rate of tax. But the concern here is the recipient is very clever. He thought, I know this fellow never going to provide my service before the change in rate of tax. So I will make the payment. So payment or invoice or supply, whichever is earlier, so this option will apply. He thought so, but the government is very clever. He said, no, 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 no. The invoice and the supply of goods is after the change in rate of tax. So you can't question that. So what? It is the date of what? Date of issue of invoice will be the date of time of supply. So a new rate. So this is the change in rate of tax section 14 completely explained. Any doubt clarified. Thank you.